In a world of constant alerts, digital fatigue, and endless multitasking, our ability to truly focus is quietly dying. We scroll to escape boredom. We jump between tabs to feel productive. But somewhere in the noise, we've lost control of our attention. And with it, we've lost clarity. But what if I told you that the antidote isn't something new? It's something ancient. Centuries ago, warriors trained for war not just with their bodies, but with their minds. They weren't chasing balance through meditation apps or noise-canceling headphones. They were forging it through repetition, through ritual, through hardship. They developed the kind of focus that could not be shaken. Even when surrounded by blood, mud, and death, they woke before dawn. They carried weight every hour of the day. They fought in armor heavier than modern gym equipment, yet remained calm under pressure. And before battle, they didn't scroll. They sat still. They prayed, they breathed, they visualized. Their clarity wasn't an accident. It was trained, not in 10-minute time blocks, but over years, through discomfort, silence, and discipline. This video isn't about fantasy. It's about memory. The memory of a time when focus was not optional. It was survival. And maybe, just maybe, the kind of focus we need today isn't lost. It's just buried under convenience, distraction, and noise. So let's dig. Let's study how ancient warriors sharpened their minds with the same intensity they sharpened their blades. Because what they built wasn't just muscle. It was unshakable focus. Long before swords were drawn, battles were fought in the mind. A medieval knight didn't just walk onto the battlefield unprepared. He began with silence, intentional, focused, almost sacred. In a small tent lit by firelight, surrounded by cold steel and the smell of leather, he sat still, not out of fear, but out of ritual. Silence was his first weapon. Breath was his first armor. Mental rehearsal was common. Knights visualized the field, the opponent's movements, their own footwork. Every strike was imagined before it was real. They didn't call it visualization, but that's what it was. A primitive, powerful form of mental programming. Some repeated prayers, not out of blind devotion, but to anchor themselves to something unshakable. Others recited oaths or quotes from chivalric codes, reminding themselves of their duty, their values, their why. This wasn't motivational fluff. It was identity. It was armor for the soul. Before chaos began, they entered calm. Before war, they found stillness. And in that stillness, they sharpened their minds as fiercely as they honed their blades. Unlike today's fragmented attention, theirs was unified, singular, alive. Focus wasn't something they tried to find in the moment. It was something they prepared for day after day, year after year. And that preparation didn't just start before battle. It was built into their way of life. The medieval warrior didn't separate physical from mental training. They were one and the same. To build focus, you first had to break the body, and then rebuild it, stronger, leaner, and more aware. Take the French knight Jean Le Mangre, known as Boucicaut. He trained himself to leap onto a horse in full armor, without assistance. He ran long distances, chopped wood, and practiced with heavy weapons until his arms trembled. And when he was exhausted, that's when he kept going, because he knew. The moment your body gives out is the moment your mind takes over. They didn't call it resilience. They didn't label it mindset, but they lived it through repetition, discomfort, sweat, and pain. Their daily routines included sparring in full chainmail, wrestling in mud-lifting stones and logs, hours of footwork drills on uneven terrain. These weren't just workouts. They were rituals. They taught patience. They demanded presence. They burned away distraction. There were no mirrors in these training grounds, no spectators, no applause, just silence and repetition. No matter how strong you were yesterday, you proved yourself again today. Discipline wasn't glamorous, it was expected. And through this constant physical demand, focus was forged. Because when your body is under pressure, your mind either scatters or sharpens. They trained until their weapons became extensions of their limbs. Until movements required no thought, just instinct. That's not just physical mastery, that's neural efficiency. That's flow. For the medieval warrior, battle wasn't random. It followed a rhythm, a sacred, brutal rhythm. The day of combat often began with ritual. Blessings were spoken. Armor was fastened with care. Even the act of sharpening a blade had a meditative quality. These weren't empty gestures. They were psychological anchors. The weight of a sword, the click of chainmail, the smell of iron. It all told the body and mind, prepare yourself. Some warriors tied tokens to their belts, pieces of cloth from loved ones, small religious charms, carved bone fragments passed down from generations. Each one had meaning, not as superstition, but as a reminder of what they were protecting, what they were fighting for. Ritual created rhythm. Rhythm created focus. The modern world moves in chaos, sudden, loud, always changing. But medieval life, and especially war, demanded cycles. Days were governed by bells, training had sequences, combat had structure, formations, signals, codes of honor. Even in battle, a knight didn't act randomly. He moved with precision, with timing, with calculated force. That kind of control doesn't come from panic. It comes from practiced rhythm. And rhythm is one of the oldest tools for mental control. It's no surprise that monks and warriors alike lived by ritual, because the mind, when given structure, learns to thrive. Without rhythm, life is noise. With rhythm, life becomes music. In the modern world, we tend to think of focus as a cognitive skill, something to improve with brain games, supplements, or better sleep. But for ancient warriors, focus wasn't just mental, it was moral. The knight's focus didn't float freely. It was tethered to a code. The code of chivalry wasn't just about honor in battle. It was a complete system of values, courage, loyalty, humility, justice, and devotion. It gave meaning to every action and filtered out distraction before it even had a chance to take root. When a warrior stepped onto the battlefield, he wasn't thinking about winning social approval, gaining followers, or pleasing an algorithm. He was guided by duty, a cause, a clearly defined internal compass, and that clarity of purpose, anchored in identity, is what sharpened their attention, because when you know what matters, you stop chasing what doesn't. This is what most of us are missing today. Not just mental focus, but moral focus. We scroll endlessly, not because we're lazy, but because we're untethered. We jump from task to task, not because we're incapable, but because we haven't chosen what truly deserves our energy. The medieval warrior chose every day what he was willing to fight for, and that choice filtered his focus like a blade through fog. Even their language reflected this. Words like virtue, duty, and honor were not abstractions. They were daily reminders of who they were and why they endured hardship. When you live by a code, you no longer need motivation. You need only remembrance. And remembrance is the foundation of unshakable focus. What can we take from all this? We're not training for war. We don't wear armor. We don't ride into battle on horseback. But we are fighting. We're fighting distraction. We're fighting doubt. We're fighting a system designed to hijack our attention and sell it to the highest bidder. And in that fight, medieval wisdom may be more relevant than ever, because today, we have more tools than any generation in history and less control. We have more information and less clarity. We've traded meaning for metrics, silence for stimulation, discipline for convenience. But here's the truth. You don't need a castle or a sword to reclaim focus. You need rhythm. You need ritual. You need purpose anchored to values that aren't for sale. The warriors of the past trained their minds through repetition, resistance, and sacred structure. You can do the same, just in different form. Instead of a prayer before battle, it might be a quiet moment before checking your phone. Instead of sharpening a blade, it might be journaling each morning to sharpen intention. Instead of physical armor, you build boundaries, protecting your time, your space, your energy. You create mental armor. You build your inner code. You move with rhythm, not reaction, because while the world around you speeds up, you can slow down and choose what to engage with. You are not a passive participant in this attention war. You are a fighter, and the tools are still here, buried under noise, waiting to be remembered. Focus is not gone. It's just been neglected. And now, it's time to train. Focus isn't something you lost last week. It didn't disappear when your schedule got busy or when your phone started buzzing again. It didn't vanish when you opened one more tab or gave in to one more scroll. It simply faded, quietly, without protest, drowned beneath 1,000 tiny choices. But the truth is, it never left you. It's still there, beneath the noise, beneath the habits, beneath the hurry, waiting. The ancients knew silence was strength, repetition was wisdom, and attention was sacred. Their battles were with blades. Ours are with distraction. But focus isn't lost. It's yours to train. Build rituals, set rhythms, sharpen your mind, armor your discipline. Walk into chaos unshaken. We don't chase focus here. We forge it. Subscribe to reclaim the strength you were built for.